All right, so up next, let's talk about Woman of the Hour, right? This is a Netflix release. It came out a while back though, but we finally getting a chance to talk
So
about it, right?
yeah. All right. So here's what happened is that I did a review in the I put pseudocode review of it in the pseudocode section. I was supposed to do something with some friends, and that's where I wrote a kind of pseudo review amongst in the forum. Now. That's why I thought I did a review for this. So I thought I was having maladapted daydreaming or something like that. Nope. I did a small review somewhere else, not on a thing, but in a forum. That's why I thought I talked about it. Anyway, that's it.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
And that was about 5 years.
All
That was
right.
about 5 days ago. All right, no problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ricardo, if
Yeah.
you don't mind, I want you to do the synopsis for this, please. But that's just
Sure.
quick thing I just want to mention, right? So this is the directorial debut of Anna Kendrick. I have not seen her in quite some time. You know what I mean? And while I was watching this, I could see why she was so attached to this material. I could tell that this was personal to her in a specific way. I'll get to that in my review, right? But yeah, I was hearing nothing but great things about this show, but all I just knew was just it was in the 70s and it had to do with a dating show and a serial
Yeah, yeah,
killer.
yeah.
And I would just
Match
say
game.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
all right, a dating show and a serial killer. Okay, what? Okay, I'm curious, I'm curious. But it's from Anna Kendrick. Okay, she doing thrillers. All right, interesting. All right, cool. But yeah, I just went in as blind as possible. I didn't watch a trailer for it. I just knew of its release and I knew of the praise it got. Right. But that's pretty much that. But yeah, Ricardo, take it away. What was this movie about?
Right. So it's based on the true story of this dude named Rodney Alcala. He's uh, apparently a famous serial killer back in the 70s. Yeah, this dude was like probably really the worst of the worst when it comes to this stuff. Like, I mean, it's all bad, but this guy is like particularly bad in terms of his thing. So, Kendrick, the story focuses on Kendrick's perspective. Um, and well, a couple other characters. Gabriel, a character named Amy, for example, she thing, and then what it does is that it focuses. Well, Kendrick plays the character Cheryl Bradshaw, who's a real woman who was like aspiring actress, and then she decided to go on the real dating game. Right, this was a popular game in the 70s, a popular game show. I remember watching a lot of this in daytime television syndication reruns. But yeah, it's just the idea of you have three men behind a barrier. They talk about themselves, and the woman had to pick them after the section. Bachelor number one, two, and three, and so on so. But the guy, the same serial killer, he was bachelor number three, and he was so the tension of the storyline goes with him, his various misgivings and murders, and then ties to uh her narrative of being a person and whether or not people believe them. And then they have a couple other Laura, this another woman who's recognizes Rodney, and is the man who apparently she was murdered at the beach. So Laura thinks that, and not spoiling anything, she thinks that he's part of that. So it's all of that tension of them piecing together this dude, uh, basically going on a serial murder, and who they eventually catch him up with. All of this happened for real, apparently. So we just have a kind of workably embellished version of this, and they just tell the story from their perspective. And I thought this was great. This was pretty damn good. Why this works is that it does the thing that Scorsese did with Killers of the Flower Moon by taking it from the perspective of the inside POV of the victims, right? A usual story like this would just tell it from the perspective of some detectives, some guys trying to piece together the murder, something like that. They say, no, tell the story from the perspective of the individual who could have been a victim and whatnot, and then they tell it that. And it's almost always an inspired choice. And why it also works is that they mix a comedic tone with the dark aspect of it because it's funny. There's a lot of good humor and funny beats in this, and they have funny people in this. Tony Hale is in this, like stuff like that. No? Kendrick is good in this, and it's really funny. And that's why it works. They do a really smart job with, in lesser hands. This could have had a whiplash effect, but no, you get it juxtaposes humor with the terrifying aspect of it, and then the creep factor of him, but they balance it with him not being as like he charming or whatever it is. The only thing I have a nitpick about is that uh yeah, a lot more charming than if you look at the real footage of the real guy. But I suppose you could reason that by saying, well, is he goggles at the time, and relatively lower standards, quote unquote, of people at the time. So he would have seemed more charming than he really is. Um, and yeah, and then they get into the aspect of how they lionize serial killers, and then why this really works. They lean into something that has always been the biggest like problem with all of these serial killers of the 20th century in particular, which is incompetence, right? The police and the powers that be, and people just not taking women, especially women of color, not seriously about something. People will be screaming, sounding the alarm for this person, and then um you realize no, this they never take the reason why this guy get away, or this person get away with so many crimes, is because he's a white guy, so they just give them the benefit of the doubt. That's what happened. I mean, in fact, it go even further, where people it have a kind of curated mythology around it in two ways, where they'll either make up some nonsense to cover up for the incompetence, right? To say, well, we're not really incompetent, but no, it's just this really thing. If you look up Stockholm syndrome, that's pretty much that. It's just some incompetent person, and the history of it. Or the fact that these guys might be like, oh, the reason why they get away is because they're geniuses. Look how brilliant these brilliant criminal minds. Like, no, you just ignore obvious evidence. That is the answer, and that does this really well. Like it just does this aspect of just not listening to people, not listening to women, especially in the context, and then they just come together with a really really dark and pretty depressing story given the ending. All things considered, because it's like the story doesn't end really with him as it is. Like especially that last little piece of text that they put on information wise, and I thought this was great. Uh, and it has come together really well. Yeah, I think it's a really really strong um premiere outing for Kendrick. This is excellent direction. I mean, she might be the inverted Leslie Nielsen, right? She for goofiness, and then she like will turn around to be this amazing director in a dark sense, and they make it really work. This is excellent. I mean, it's similar to like what we get with Blink Twice. We didn't review that, but Blink Twice have a similar thing. Zoe Kravitz have her first. I think she has her debut as well. Uh,
Oh, Zoe Kravitz. Yeah.
yeah. The same thing. So it's something, and you're talking about some abuse situation, because yeah, that's basically the P Diddy movie. But yeah, what did we hear is great stuff, and I dig the hell out of it. Yeah, I thought this was excellent. Just really solid outing, right? Not like a masterpiece or anything like that. Just like good, just good, competent storytelling and filmmaking. It's something in the vein of like a Zodiac, but Killers of the Flower Moon, a little bit or something like that. It's a roughly similar time period, similar problems of you know again how detective work was at the time, and forensics and all this kind of stuff, to make it make sense. And yeah, it's just yeah, it's more a systemic problem rather than the killer themselves. Yes, the killer is the problem, but the reason why they get away is how much they enabled. But yeah, I dug the hell out of this. Genuinely funny and charming at parts. They make it work, but they already make it like interesting and terrifying. How it's shot, and they make a lot of really smart calls in terms of the direction. The strength of it is really the direction, to be honest. But yeah, I dug the hell out of this.
Right. So let me just get this out of the way, right? If you are a fan of those Pop the Balloon series, this
Right.
you need to watch this show. You need to watch this show and really understand
Yeah.
what's
This
being
was like the
said here.
original. This was the original Pop the Balloon kind of
Yeah,
shows, right? This match game, dating game things. Yeah, again, I remember these things. Just Pop the Balloon is just a lot more cynical and mean spirited than that ever was.
that's
But
true.
yeah, go ahead.
But you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's how popular they are, right? And I'm saying this
Right,
too because of the whole dating game angle, right? So I will confess, right?
right.
While I was like watching the show, admiring the craft, the story, all that kind of stuff, right? And then it ends, right? And I'll just say like, all right, that's how they end it. Okay. I didn't enjoy that much though. Like someone's all for the end, right? And then I just started to reflect on what it is I saw. I started piecing together. I was like, oh shit, that's what going on. Oh, you know what I mean? And just the more I thought about it, the more things started come together, the more just just the execution of it all though, just the more intelligent it was, boy. And just to get this out of the way, just to kick off the review proper, this is a brilliant debut from Anna Kendrick though. Just the execution of it though was just mind blowing to me, boy. For
Right.
me, it's not just the direction. Like the direction was strong as well. I love how it stuck with the 70s aesthetic and whatnot. Um,
Yeah.
even right now to the choice of font too. You know what I mean? I know it's one of those
Right.
things that you wouldn't really think about, but like I'm a film buff, so I noticed those little things. I know, but yeah, I noticed little things like that kind of 70s, so kind of, yeah, I like that, right? But yeah, it really what blew me away though was the structure of it all, right? So. Without spoiling much, right? It is not just centered on Anna Kendrick's character, right? She plays Cheryl Bradshaw, right? She's this actress who just wants to make it big in Hollywood, and her acting coach just pretty much put her onto the show, just like, yeah, do this, and people see your face because you're attractive and stuff, and yeah, they'll cast you in the movies and all that kind of stuff, right? That's the gist of it all, right? Um, I thought the whole show was going to be centered on this, and then, well, the Bachelor number 3, him being the killer, and you just see how things play out there, right? But what surprised me is that you actually saw a few other victims of Rodney, right? Alcala, right? Who's played brilliantly by Daniel Zovato, right? I was actually amazed that it wasn't just about Cheryl as in Anna Kendrick's character, but
Right,
these
right,
other
right.
victims as well, right? And what I love also too is that it just pretty much develops, who Rodney is, right? Just basically how he goes about finding his victims.
Yeah,
He just kind of runs into them, which is so sinister when you really think about it, right? And
yeah,
how he dispatches them, though, it's very like one thing that is like, and for me, honestly, like when you see him, like when you see character himself, it kind of makes sense though. He just kind of goes about, like, he doesn't plan things out though. He just kind of goes like, okay, this is the moment, boom, I'm gonna do it. But he does not really think things through, especially with
yeah,
the
exactly.
with a particular victim whose narrative goes plays out longer than the others. That's all I'll say without spoiling anything, right? I would
Yeah,
say Cheryl's own runs the longest, right? But the second longest, that one, there are some moments where it's like, Rodney, you're supposed to know better than this, right? But that's the beauty of the show, right? It's just kind of showing that there's something just dark going on with his psyche, right? Where he
right,
kind of is compelled to do the murders, but it's like he don't really think it properly. Just like,
right.
I get, like, he gets that urge basically. Like, he gets that urge. He's like, and he just kind of reacts. That's how it is, right?
Yeah,
And you see
but
how
as I said, these things.
well, sorry, last thing. And you see it happen and not happen, right? That's the beauty of the show. You see how it happened before, how it almost happened, and how in certain cases it didn't happen. So in terms of just giving us like a real like psychological background into Rodney Alcala, yeah, this
Right.
movie works, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's why it works too, because they focus on that aspect of it that, again, is very, very frustrating because of the whole incompetence and neglect that enable it. No. Again, if I understand, like, again, when we look at serial killers historically, like in my time, you get the sense of, oh, is there some genius person? But most serial killers actually have relatively lower intelligence on average, from what I understand. They have
Yeah.
impulse control problems. But because for whatever reason, we make a kind of curated mythology around them. And it's just a cover up the incompetence of the police, right? Sorry to say it. Nobody want to say that. Everybody want to think that smart detectives looking for everybody think it's fucking Seven,
You
right?
know?
That's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not that. The reason why these guys get away for so long is it's just incompetence, straight incompetence. Like they just get away with it, and like I mentioned before, nobody listening to them now. It's stuff like that now. But yeah, that's what I like about it. It does a debunking of them, somewhat a demystification of him
Mm.
as a person, because it focuses a lot on him just having severe impulse control. He's covered it up, kind
Yeah.
of,
Kind of.
behind a mask. Kind of, but not really. He's like, oh no, like, he just kind of dotish. We think about it.
Yeah,
Um,
he is kind
yeah.
of dotish when they think about it too, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
this is why I love two things, right? One, not just showing us a profile of Rodney, but also showing the victims, right? And what he looks for in his victims, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that also ties to the dating game. And just sorry to say, that's how insidious. Not saying that all those games were like horrible or demeaning to women or whatnot, right? But just the deep, dark, insidious nature behind it, right? Because it's it's a lovely, usually attractive woman, and you have these three guys, having to charm and swarm their way into her picking one of them, right? And yeah, but the show kind of ends. The show typically ends like, oh, she found someone, yay for her, right? But
Right.
what
Right.
happens next? What happens when the show goes off air? That's the thing, right? So
Yeah.
even though the show does not like go that far, right? It kind of gives you, just a not so much a quick glimpse, but just like oh, this is what happened after that era,
there's
that
there's
TV.
a there's a really there's a very very creepy part, and there's a part of this I find interesting. 'Cause this is something that is very prevalent in show business, which is the whole, people can't really mix show business and reality well. So
Uh-huh.
that part with him meeting her at the end, at the end of the episode, and then he waiting for her after the thing,
Yeah,
after outside the studio.
outside the studio. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Yeah, yeah,
moment
yeah.
was great though,
You're
but
right.
very
Yeah, he
creepy
just
though.
waiting
Yeah,
her. Yeah, he said, "Well, I lost you back there," kind of thing. It's like, bro, what? And you
yeah,
think it's like, oh, yeah, right. A lot of people just think you can't. Like I think in his head, like again, they do that psychology a little bit, and I think it's framed like that. How he's like, well, no, I dating you for real, kind of thing. Now, like,
exactly. Yeah,
no, it's a show.
it's a
Like, stop
show.
it.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, like
and
okay,
yeah, and for one thing, right? So that not surprising, right? This is a feminist show.
yeah.
You could tell, and it makes a lot of
Yeah, they
sense,
make
right?
it, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's that, yeah,
So I have to give credit though, just for the characterization, not just
yeah,
to Cheryl, just her being reserved, but she have a reason for being reserved, and it make a lot of sense given where she's at and what it is she want to do. It makes a lot of sense, and that's why I feel like this show, or at least this story, was near and dear to Anna Kendrick. Like I don't know her entire backstory or career
right.
or whatnot, right? But I could tell just seeing her play Cheryl, right? Because again, she's not just behind the camera, but she's in front of it as well too. I could tell like some of this stuff rang true for her, right? Just the idea of men looking at her in a kind of
I'd
a
imagine.
inappropriate way, that kind of vibe. I could
Yeah,
tell.
and
I
I
could
think
tell.
I think with Anna Kendrick. Anna Kendrick is somebody who has always, at least image-wise, has always felt infantilized, right? A little bit, right?
Yes.
To me at least, she has always felt like an infantilized person. She always this bubbly person. She just kind of
Always smile, and I mean she have a
right, always
lovely
nice.
smiler, but yeah, I could
Yeah, no, yeah,
tell
yeah,
that the
but
eyes
you
though,
could
the
because
gaze.
especially in the last especially in the last 10 to 15 years of there's all this weird stuff coming out with Hollywood, especially with the child networks like John Snyder and all of that mess, right?
Yeah.
You could see a subversion of that being played out, and she's like, again, as I say, she's like the perfect person for this now because we know her from comedy, mostly, right? More
Yeah.
from being the nice character, the smiley character, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then to put her in this context, and it's like, oh, you're right. There are a lot of people out there who have no problem. A lot of dudes out there who have no problem taking advantage of that, taking that, yeah. And they play that really well with her as an actress in the context of the story.
Yes, yes, yes.
I don't know if the real woman was like this. I have no idea, but they make it work. Like that little stuff like that just really make it work, I think.
Yeah, it does. And just the women themselves who are centered around all of this, right? Just the way
Yeah,
how they move, right? So in side spoiler, yeah, they just kinda realize, oh, you just some kind of like weird, creepy guy. Okay, I don't want anything to do with you, right? It's like this
right.
one scene involving a woman who rented this apartment. Yeah, she kinda just see through all that, like, all right, cool, okay, you know what I mean? She just kinda goes about the way, right? And Rodney reacts to that, right? In a way, right? Which you wouldn't spoil, right? Also points to Daniel Zovato though. Like I'm not familiar with
Yeah,
him, but yeah, just playing this guy. And one thing that they did nail well, right? And this is why I love the dating game conceit, right? Yeah, he have a way with words. He could charm his way into into not so much into a woman's bed, but it's like, oh, I'm digging you now. All right, we
yeah,
chatting, we talking about movies and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I cool, Okay, you reject the man, then he reacts, right? Or
yeah,
what his gimmick, I should say, involves a camera or a camcorder. So he's always like taking pictures or filming, so it's like
right,
that, right?
right. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that his performance was great though, and you could legit see him
But
as
that was the big red flag to her. Like, well, who you taking pictures of? So like, okay,
that's the thing, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And given the context of the story, you could see him as a contestant on a show like that, right? And that to
of course,
me
right.
is the hard issue. Just because when you think about it, just on paper, right? Like a serial killer going on a dating show, what? Like you had
Right.
it out your mind to do that, right? But the more you learn about Rodney, and this is what I love about these side stories, these flashbacks, if you will, right? Yeah, it makes sense, right? And given the period to the 70s, like, yeah. It makes a lot of sense, right? Today it'll be like, nah, this makes
Yeah, because
absolutely no
you can't really
sense. Because you're
yeah, you
putting
can't
yourself
really
out there, people will
yeah,
see you.
you
And they
can't
play
search
on
yeah, you
that
can't search
too.
up a person. Yeah, you can't search up
Exactly,
a
yeah.
person.
And they play
Yeah,
on that too.
exactly.
Like, you're putting yourself out there, with somebody who relate, who know about what you did, which does happen, see you, then what, right? What if the police
Right.
see you, right? And, but yeah, the man like just say, nope, this is where I'm gonna find my next victim. Boom, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
here, right? And that is so insidious shit. That's why I say, yeah, all the fans of Pop the Balloon Dread, y'all be careful, you know. Y'all be careful with that,
Sure.
right?
I wait for somebody to make a Pop the Balloon movie.
Oh, that would be great though. That like
You know?
that dark. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want it to be like a slasher film, but like a serial killer take on the Pop the
Yeah.
Balloon thing. You know,
Somebody
that'd
could
be
do that.
interesting,
Yeah.
right?
Somebody could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the structure, the narrative structure of it is what really worked for me. Because yeah, I was watching, it's like, all right, I don't know if this working, I don't know if this working, you know. But then when it ended, and then I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it, right? So yeah, just to wrap things up though, this is a well thought out story as well. Even right down, not spoiling much, the final montage, if you will, there's the imagery that is used. That's all I'll say without spoiling anything.
Yeah.
Where you see the text explain what happens, right? Or even that and all makes sense. You know what I mean? It just all put together very, very well, right? But yeah, much of my surprise, it was not about the dating game. It was not about Cheryl
Yeah.
Bradshaw, but it was
I thought.
about, you know, the whole insidious surrounding it, and why a guy like Rodney would be like, yeah, I can't go on that show, you know, even though he has killed people before, and slight spoiler afterwards. That was
Yeah.
just amazing to me. Yeah.
I thought the whole thing was going to be that. Like, it was going to
Yeah.
be about kind of like with Trap, or
Yeah.
well, most of the Trap, or like how Late Night with the Devil was, or something like that, right? I thought it was going to be like that, something like that, but
Yeah.
nah, it's not that. Yeah, go ahead.
And lastly, right? I think that this is all purposeful as well. I think that this is just Anna saying, here's what, I'm gonna play with your perceptions. Like, oh, you think that the show is gonna be about Rodney following my character. No, we're not gonna do that. Or you think, oh, it's just gonna show Rodney kill a bunch of people in between all this stuff with Cheryl. No, not exactly. We're not gonna do that, right? So it just subverts your expectations of what you expect from a true crime story and a story about a
Right.
serial killer. It just keeps doing that right down to the very end. I was like, what? Okay, like Anna, do your thing, hon, do your thing, right? So yeah, color me surprised. This was an amazing debut, Jill, and I really want to see what she brings next to the table, right? But again, as I said, I feel like this story was near and dear to her, just in terms with her life and career in show business. I feel like, yeah, this really hit home for her. I could see it though. You could see it in just the story and how it's played out and whatnot, right? Especially with her character and Rodney's character as well too. That's how they were portrayed, right? So yeah, for me, rating wise, strong 4, I like 4.5 out of 5. Yeah, 1 year's best.
Yeah.
This won't be a top 10 for me. Just seeing that right out the
No,
gate, right?
right.
But it will be in my best of for sure, right? Not an honorable mention, it will be there for sure. And I'll close this, right? Similar to May December, which I put in my list as well, right? Which I loved, but it wasn't a top 10 for me neither. I'm now wondering if this show will get a Oscar nom. Maybe Anna could get something. Maybe not for actress, but maybe, hopefully, maybe best director. That could be great.
Well, I mean, I to me, if Ting don't get best director, I don't know how she gonna get best director. We call it Greta Gerwig.
Oh, Greta Gerwig, yeah, but you know, yeah.
Whatever.
But for me though, I think who should get nominated out of everybody is Daniel Zovato boy. I thought that he did a great job as Rodney boy. Just believable, charming, swami, but also creepy and just the type of person you just don't want to be around, boy. Cause yeah, that guy is creepy AF. But again, given the context of the show, yeah, he could charm his way into a woman's heart, right? Or so he thinks, right? But yeah, just how they portray that through his character, I thought was excellent, right? But yeah, this was a surprise for me. I really, really dug this show, and I can't wait to see what Anna Kendrick does next behind the camera, I should say, right? So yeah, Ricardo, yeah, your final thoughts are rated.
Yeah, I get it like an 8 out of 10. This is pretty good. Just competent, simple filmmaking. You know, really, really, just everything comes together really well. Smart and smart perspective. Like again, much like what Scorsese did with Killers of the Flower Moon, by putting it from within. It's a very inspired choice, making it a POV narrative, right? Instead of wasting time with some outside detective piecing together after the fact. No, tell the story as it is, get into the psychology of the characters and make it work. Yeah, 8 out of 10. Loved it.